Well, it's so good to be with all of you today. We were just coming from a outreach from our church. So our three boys were glad to come to the brunch yesterday, and they greatly delighted in that, but they wanted to finish out at the church outreach. I think because it was a trunk or treat and candy was involved, that was a little bit of a sway. We thought about maybe coming in our costumes. We were, was it Sully? We had matching costumes there, but it was fun to see a lot of kids just come on through and just fellowship with a bunch of people in our community. But so we were running on a bit of Peru time. So if you were nervous, if we had remembered what day we were coming, we were remembering we were just running on Peru time. So I grew up in Peru, and everyone arrives a little bit late at times. But it's so good to be with you guys. Just think of even just your theme, people serving people. Grandville Bible has, just thinking of how faithful God has been to Grandville Bible, and just through that, you guys have been so faithful to us, praying for us, for our family, serving us in so many different ways, through snacks, through Bibles, as we'll share a little bit more, just through just financially supporting us. We just couldn't feel more loved and received by a church. Couldn't ask for a better church to come alongside us and encourage us in the midst of ministry. So we just want to say thank you. So we feel like in so many ways, even though this isn't our primary attending church, we come home here. You guys take good care of my mom as well, so thanks for doing that. Yep, the picture's up there. So I was, as we were preparing, this picture's a little bit old. It is about 5 years ago, somewhere around this day, my oldest sister Bonnie took this picture of us as we were preparing to kind of launch with the Navigators. And it's like, wow, we've been doing this for 5 years, a nice fall day out at the park. And so it's just fun to reminisce a little bit like, wow, we're 5 years in with the Navigators, and God has been faithful to us in the midst of that. But we're excited to share. And Jody and I were talking back and forth about, boy, how do we share? There's so many different things. And so Jody is the analytical person in our family. So I'm just kind of reckless and impulsive and just out there. And Jody kind of reins me in a little bit. So she put, I think, some healthy structure for our sharing. So we wanted to share a little bit in terms of just some of the themes of the age groups that we work with, what's happening among different age groups. So we work with elementary students, we work with middle school students, some high school, and it just turns out kids keep on growing up. So now we are launching into working with some young adults as well. And as we work with kids, we get in contact with their parents as well. But we're going to start with the elementary. So there we go. So, and my wife's up here. She's going to jump in the gaps. There's the things that I forget, or she has different perspective on things sometimes. So, but this is a picture of our house. We live at 229 Sweet Street in Northeast Grand Rapids. And so if you were to drive by our house after school lets out, this would be a fairly common sight, as you would see lots of students kind of hanging around our house. And we love to be just a spot of warmth and a spot of hospitality in our community. So there's an elementary school about 3 blocks away from our house, Palmer Elementary. And quite often, many of them will make a beeline to our house where they will maybe grab a cookie or a Freezy Pop. We keep our freezer stocked with Freezy Pop, so it's a simple expression of love. And so many of the snacks that you have passed by will distribute a little bit here and there as kids come by, and they'll just hang out and share about how their day was and what's been going on at school, what they're looking forward to in the weekend. And so maybe at sometimes too much, kids are almost just constantly knocking on our door. We have a doorbell camera where the battery is supposed to last for 3 months, but the more often that people go in front of it, the battery dies real quick. So in the last 2 weeks, we had to charge it. It lasted 2 weeks. So there's just a lot of traffic, for good or for bad, at our house. And we just want to capture, that's our heart, is to be the heart of Jesus, is like kids will just come and come and be present and just experience God's love at our house. So this picture was taken towards the end of summer. So we invited many of our elementary students to come over for a backyard movie. So you'll see there's a little popcorn maker on the side that some of you graciously donated through Grandville to give the kids some popcorn in the midst of the movie. And we just watched, I don't even remember what, it was some cartoon, Lilo and Stitch. And it's just the kids came on over, and in the midst of that movie, we had a neighbor 2 houses down that we can kind of see, the backyards are kind of open. And she had just kind of watched and observed from a distance for probably a year of just kids coming over to our house very regularly. And so my wife, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, so my niece and I were talking. She's like, Aunt JoJo, there's a girl that keeps staring over here. We should go see if she wants to come. And I said, I think that's a great idea. So my niece Peyton and I walked over to her house and said, Anna, do you want to come watch some movie with us? We have popcorn and some other snacks. And she said, I think I do want to come. So that was the first time that Anna joined us, and she's been coming to every single thing since then. And her grandpa actually started coming Sunday mornings to our church. I believe this was, their fourth Sunday that they've joined us now. So that's just a really exciting thing to see it going from a neighbor who now is joining us as a church family member.
Mm-hmm. And we started to see a lot of kids come over regularly, so it's like, why don't we create a special day where we do something purposeful with the kids? I think last time we shared on Tuesday afternoons, we have afternoon Bible club. Some of the kids call it Celebrate. And it kind of starts with just some free time as kids come over afterwards. So you'll see, probably getting too close to this microphone. So this is what happens a little bit during free time. So you'll see some kids are in the back on the left. You can't see that there's a little bit of a tree house there. So there's a cluster of kids that will hang out there. There turns into little basketball games, soccer, all sorts of things. On the table there that you can't really see either, there's a bunch of crafts. So my wife, Jody, usually is there doing a bunch of crafts. You can see I'm in the back by the garage. Kids will bring their bikes to get fixed. And so it's just kind of a busy, bustling place where we'll set out some Kool-Aid and kids will come. And then after that, we shift into a game time. So we've realized that we need to create some structure at least after the free time. And so they're building the tallest block tower out of some Jenga blocks. And we had like a little ice cream cone coupon prize for McDonald's for the winning team. But you also see one answer to prayer that we had is that there's a girl that's standing in the back. Her name is Brianna. She attends our high school Bible study. And I think the second day in, we had 24 kids at our afternoon Bible club on Tuesdays, and we just looked at each other like, this is a lot of kids for us to manage and think through. And as we were talking with our high school Bible club, Bible study that meets on Thursdays, we were just asking them, what are your hopes and dreams for this year? And a couple of the girls just raised their hand and said, we would love to mentor some younger kids. And so, whoa. Look at this. We have how would you like to come in and help us out? So they both were like, yeah, that sounds like it'd be amazingly fun. And so even before, honestly, I think we were praying for that. God even answered that prayer even before we started to pray. And so that was a huge answer to prayer there. But a lot of times we do games partway through. And then we will do, we've been going through the Jesus Storybook Bible. So we left off about when Jesus was born last year, and then we're continuing on through Jesus' ministry. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see in the screen there, we discovered that they have different videos of it, and that actually, when we have a whole lot of kids, we found it easier to show the video of the Jesus Storybook Bible, just because it's been able to capture their attention a little bit better. They all just kind of are glued in. And then after they watch the story, they have an opportunity to ask questions. So usually you share, what did you like about the story? What did you learn about God? What did you learn about people? Any questions that you had that you didn't understand? And they have just been really captured by the story. And so one of the little boys that we've gotten to know a lot more, Aiden, did you want to share about Aiden and how he came to the door after?
It was a couple weeks ago. The Bible club had ended. I was back home. Jim was putting things away back at the church, and Aiden came knocking to the door, and he's like, "Hi, Miss Jody." I was like, "Hey, where were you? We missed you." He goes, "Oh, was it Tuesday? I didn't know today was Tuesday." And he was almost in tears, and he was like, "But what was the story? I missed the story." And so it's like, well, that's okay, bud. Like we'd love to fill you in on what the story was, and just had a chance to share with him. But he was just heartbroken at the thought that he didn't know what was next in Jesus' life.
One of the other boys that has been coming, a boy named Isaiah, he's been coming for a few years now. He was sick last Tuesday, so we'd been asking, hey, where's Isaiah? And everyone was saying he was sick. So he texted me later that day and he said, Mr. Jim, I was so sad I have to miss the story. What did I miss in the story? And so we're just excited how God is like putting a thirst in their hearts to know, what is Jesus up to next? What else can I learn about God? And they just are excited to be there. I think that it was last week Tuesday or last week Monday. A lot of times we'll have kids that are just hanging out and we invite, why don't you just come on in for dinner for us? And so we went around the table. We don't have 24 kids for dinner. It was usually like 2 or 3. Otherwise, it's just way too crazy. Although it is sometimes a little bit crazy around our house. But we had 2 kids, Aiden, the one who had missed a couple times ago, and his cousin Hunter, who he lives with. And we were just going around the dinner table and just share, hey, what's a good thing from today, and what's a challenging thing for today? And both Aiden and Hunter, they both shared, man, my best part of today is being here with you guys. My best part of today was being at Bible Story today. And so they really love coming and being a part of the community and learning about God. And I think they're not used to, I think, a lot just families sitting down together and being able to just have discussion around the table. And so we're thankful to kind of invite them into that. One fun thing, too, is our son Noah, who is in 7th grade, has gotten really excited, and he's becoming to be the game leader now for the Bible Club. So we're excited to see him step into that role. And when it was snack time, everybody was kind of like clamoring to get to the front of the snack table. I'm sure that never happens with your grandkids, of trying to get to the front of the line. But that Mark 10:31 says, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. So my son Noah was thinking, hey, we should flip the line around. So we kind of said, hey, in God's kingdom, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. That was kind of a learning experience for them of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't like rush to the front of everything. Next week, we're excited to go to an orchard. We're going to go to an apple orchard. So many of them have never been to an apple orchard. We continue to find that a lot of experiences, they just don't, their world is a few block radius in Grand Rapids. So many have never been to like Lake Michigan or, these type of things. And so we brought one of our elementary students to the zoo the other day, and it was like, he was saying, like, I've never been to the zoo before. I'm so excited to see some animals. And just a lot of these youth have a deficit of experiences, and their world is very, very small. So we've had one bonus child since before the summer, really. And so he just made a great friendship with our boys, and through interacting with his parents, they decided, you know what, it's good for him to stay with us for a season of time. And so it's been cool to see just with him, just learning and observing. A lot more is caught than taught. And so he just would notice things. And so suddenly we started to see him get more and more excited about Jesus. He gave his life, this young man right here, he gave his life to Christ at summer camp. And he saw our boys being baptized and was just sharing, like, I want to be baptized. And so we're in the midst of talking with him about what that means and the significance of that and walking with God. And then he saw, do you want to share what's happening in the picture?
Yeah, we did not plan it on purpose, but all 3 of our boys ended up with Bible names. So we have Micah, Noah, and Caleb. And so Jim had the idea when Caleb was born that we should find a verse for each of our boys that had their name in it that we could pray over them. And so that's been a special thing. We have those on our wall, and our boys really enjoy like telling people like that's my verse. And so our bonus boy Jude we hadn't realized he had been looking at those, and one day he came to me and he was like, what can my verse be? And so wonderfully coincidentally, he also has a Bible name. So he and I went to the book of Jude and decided on Jude 1:2 to be his verse, that may God give you more and more mercy, peace, and love. And that is indeed our prayer for our little bonus boy, just that he will be flooded with mercy, peace, and love, because it's not always abundant in his life. And so he asked if he could have some sidewalk chalk and a Bible. And he went and he wrote his verse on our driveway.
I think a lot of these youth, we get to know their parents through as they're getting picked up or dropped off, or as we reach out if there's maybe some sort of crisis or a lack of something at home, and it's an opportunity for us to drop in and just say, hey, is there a way that we can serve you, any way we can bless you? And so just this young man's dad is just saying, hey, I think I need some more ideas on how to be more present in his life. And so it's so cool to just see God work in that way, just through really some simple acts of kindness and stuff, to see, hey, there's something here. There's something special about, these people and what they believe and the way that they interact. So it's neat to see just a lot of opportunities with parents. So we do some working with middle school as well. So you'll see this is a group of middle schoolers at camp, and they, so here they are journaling. So we made some journals for them. So at different times throughout the day, they could just write down and process, how is God working? What are you learning? What questions do you have? And so here's a group of a lot of students entering middle school. But one of the girls, she had a really rough time initially at camp, and she had been bullied a lot at school and was sharing a lot about that. But she wrote just prayer for her family and her stability. She was very focused on her family while she was at camp, and she felt like, I don't know if I can come, because she was kind of the primary care for a lot of her younger siblings. And then later to realize through interacting even more with her mom, who is handicapped, that there were 16 people living in her household. And so just to realize, wow, they are just in close quarters. And so just different opportunities to come alongside and serve the family and realize, whoa, their whole garage was from the bottom to the top just full of bags of trash. And so just simply being able to hey, let's get a trailer and let's relocate that. And so their family is coming and growing, and her younger brother also came to camp and gave his life to Christ. This young girl, she's like, I want to be baptized. She just said, I want to get rid of all my social media because it's just causing me stress. It's keeping me distracted from growing with God, and I want to learn more of his wisdom. And it's just so cool to see the way that God works through just this camp and so many different circumstances to see. We get the joy and excitement of kind of walking with a lot of that heart change in the midst of kids. There was another student that just came. They have something called Crosstalk. Well, that's where they share the gospel. And one young man, he just came with tears in his eyes in the midst of, they give kids an opportunity to come forward. And he had sunglasses on, and so I wasn't sure exactly, okay, where is he? And he just I just want to give my life to Jesus. I realize that I've been on a bad track in my life. I've done some things that have been very hurtful towards others, and I want to grow. And we have seen this young man do a 180 in terms of growth. So he has been coming and attending youth group every single time. He's just started to say, I want to start coming on Sundays as well. He requested a Bible, and hey, we've got Bibles, and because he wanted to grow and continue to learn. And so we just see that God is doing some great things in people's hearts. On Wednesdays, I help a ministry called Bridge Street Ministries. So we do kind of a partnership. We kind of help them launch a middle school ministry on the northeast side of Grand Rapids, which is every day. I'm only able to help on Wednesdays, but that's the Bible Lab. And so here's a bunch of students playing in the gym, but then also later in the day, and I forgot to snap some pictures of it, but you would see two big giant tables of students with their Bibles open, and we've been going through the whole storyline of the Bible. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Discovery Bible Study, where we read through Genesis 1 and then Genesis 2 the next week and then Genesis 3, and just going through the whole storyline of the Bible, because so many of these youth are unfamiliar with the whole story of the Bible, Genesis to Revelation. They might have heard of Noah or a big flood at some point, but they don't know how it all connects in the God who is over all of it. And so in the midst of the Bible study, it's so exciting to have kids talk and share and just have so many questions. You would see so many hands up of kids wanting to share an observation that they saw or a question that they have. we could do 3 or 4 hours sometimes in terms of Bible study. They're just so curious. And we have honest conversations too, because a few of them are like, how can we actually know God is real? Before I believe this, how can we just assume that God is real? So we have some honest conversations about, is God real, and is he really present and loving even when our lives are so tough and sometimes? So many of our youth struggle to know, is God really loving? Is God really here when my life is full of so much hardship? One of the middle schoolers, a number of our middle schoolers, more so this year than before, have been experiencing a lot of bullying. And so we get opportunities to come alongside them. One of our neighbors, I think 4 houses down, his aunt reached out to me and just said, hey, what school do you guys send your boys to? My nephew is just experiencing so much bullying at school. Riverside, the school that we work with, is becoming increasingly rough, and we have talked with several kids that have had to move schools just because it's so rough and so much bullying experience. But it's an opportunity to, again, an opportunity to come alongside, and so we were able to have a fun time where his dad is really not present in his life, and so we're like, hey, why don't you bring your bike over that's got a flat tire? Let's get that fixed, and then of course we should celebrate with some ice cream, and then we could have an opportunity to talk about what was going on at school and some of the bullying, and just say, hey, I have an idea. What if you were to start coming to the church, and you could start hanging around people that hopefully you would experience kindness and God's love in the midst of that. So since that point, he's just been coming to youth group and growing and doing well in the midst of that. And so he has yet to give his life to Christ, but we're just seeing that he is warming up to having a better understanding of who God is, a God of love. We love to go, we just get to do a lot of fun things, fix bikes and ice cream and just love on kids. And so we really love the things that we get to do. But here we are, including our dog Scout. We went on a canoe trip. We invited some students to come with us on a canoe trip just provide some great depth of opportunity for conversations. And we invited some friends to come along. So you see 4 middle school students standing with us there. So there's a lot of in-between things that we do throughout the weeks and the summers and things. And then there's high school. So here's a picture of some of our high school group. We meet on Thursday evenings, and also with our high schoolers, we've been going through the Discovery Bible Study. So we have one young man who we also brought to Kids Across America. He came to our Bible study, our high school Bible study last year, and he was just like, is it okay if I am here? I'm just here because a couple of my friends are here, and because you guys have food. I was like, yeah, it's awesome that you're here. But he was like, I'm an atheist, and so I don't know if that's okay for me to be here. I was like, you are welcome here. And at summer camp, he gave his life to Christ. And this year, as we've just been jumping into Genesis, I've been giving them, hey, let me give you a challenge. Read these next few chapters and journal through it, and if you do that, we'll give you a little treat. But he was like, I don't have a Bible. I would love to have a Bible to read. And so once again, we pulled out from that stack of Bibles that you guys donated and said, hey, we have a Bible for you. And he's been reading it and eating up. And he's like, and he's just light bulbs will come on. Like, I get it. This is why God did that. Oh, this is why he is loving. He made so many fruits and trees of every kind. That's out of his love and care for us. And so it's so cool to see him come. He also comes with a friend who is an atheist. And is also warming up to the idea of God. So he went from way back not participating to starting to engage and ask questions. And even, a student the other day was like, wait a minute. So it's wrong to have sex before marriage? And just as we've been reading through the Bible, just things that you would anticipate would come natural for most kids are what they see and observe in their families and their world is just not at all a biblical plan and a biblical model. And so it's exciting to just kind of see God work in different ways like that. So we had a long and good discussion about that. As the weather's nice, sometimes we like to do just outdoor backyard barbecues. So this is another picture of the high school group. And then, so this right here is from a picture of us on our way to Kids Across America camp. That's one of the larger things that we do. So we invite 5 other ministries to come partner with us. So we had this past year 135 leaders and students heading to Kids Across America camp. And so we had 2 bus loads of kids and 2 van loads, and it's just been a blessing to partner with a lot of other ministries, but they're also, looked like you were about to say something.
I was just going to say, for the past several years that we've gone, we've always gotten a particular grant that has helped provide like food and snacks on the way down and help with the transportation. And this year, the grant informed us that they were changing focus and that they were no longer able to provide this grant for us. And in like just trying to work with other leaders, like what are we going to do, and just laying it at God's feet. That was shortly after you guys blessed us with so many snacks. And so like I think at one point I was like, Jim, like a big part of what the grant was towards snacks, and we have so many snacks. And so we were able to, this was at a rest stop that we stopped, and we were able to pull out so many of the snacks that you guys just so wonderfully gifted us, and we're able to provide them with something to eat on the, how long of a bus ride is it?
This is a 12-hour bus ride.
So. Your blessings to us that just continue to bless others.
So we had 15 leaders between the ministries, and one really neat thing, and I may have shared it before, but 7 of the 15 leaders that came, we'd kind of interacted with and had been in different ministries when they were younger. So it's cool to see having these kids as younger students, and then suddenly, wow, they're leading and on staff at other ministries in Grand Rapids, pouring out their hearts and just seeing, wow, God can use me to make an impact in his kingdom. So it's really neat to see them in a lot of ways. So here's...
And I think just quick back for those that aren't aware, we've been on staff with Navigators for 5 years, but we've lived in our neighborhood, in our community for 18 years. And Jim was on staff at our church for 16 of those years. Yeah, so we lived in our house for 18 years. He lived in the neighborhood a couple of years before that. But we've had a lot of interaction with youth in our community unofficially for many years, until God made it very clear to us that it was time to follow his calling to work completely with the youth in our neighborhood.
So we also have some students, as they've grown older, they're no longer in high school, so they don't really fit the high school program. So we've been kind of scratching our heads and just praying through, God, how do we maintain relationship with them? One of the values of the I-58, where we're within the Navigators from Isaiah 58, is what does it look like to effectively make disciple-making disciples in an urban context? And one of their values is whole life discipleship. Kind of the idea that oftentimes you'll have to walk with youth for 15, 20 years before you start to see that duplicating fruit in their lives. And this young man, Mario, we've known him since he was in 6th grade. And so he gave his life to Christ, again, at Kids Across America. We were talking on the way here, like, wow, many of our kids have come to know Christ in that deep way with a commitment at camp. But we get together about once a week, and we've walked together through helping them get a bank account, helping them learn about finances. What does it mean to save, and how do you not spend money on snacks and food all the time? So he's in the midst of trying to save for a car. He drove him to and from driving school. We helped to get him in an academic help thing because he fell out of high school. He dropped out of high school with his mom passing away, and his dad is a drug addict. And so, he doesn't know his real dad, doesn't have a relationship with his real dad, but his stepdad has been addicted to drugs for as long as he's known him. But we have talks from dating and relationships, to just diving in God's word, like, hey, let's see what the Bible has to say about this. So he always comes with big things happening in his life, and so we're continuing to pray for him. That's his little sister, Alyssa, who is a huge joy, and that was actually taken at his mom's funeral, like a year and a half ago. His mom passed away, but he seems to be doing really well. And then he'll crash, and then he'll come up a little bit more, and it's just kind of an up and down road for him. But when you look at his past, he's just got a lot going on. So here is, I'll let Jody share about this.
This is one of our girls, Alana, and we've known her also since she was in 6th grade. And she has just been a huge part of our family and our ministry. And when we first knew her, she talked about how, she didn't think she was going to graduate because her older siblings didn't, and they're doing okay. So her plan was when she was 16 to drop out of school and probably work at McDonald's, and so we were able to come alongside of her one of the ways academically, and here she is with her diploma. She graduated. Actually, she ended up graduating a year early, because she really got things in gear and took extra courses and graduated high school early. And she started college at community college this fall. She was so excited to come and share with us her schedule. And she got some scholarships, so she was able to get a laptop. And we also were able to help her with driving. Jim takes his life in his hands sometimes and takes students who have no driving experience to get some driving experience. And so we were able to help her get her license at the end of the summer. And so she was so excited to drive her mom's car over to us the week after she got her license. And she just is flourishing in life, and it is a joy to see. And she is also growing in her relationship with Christ. When she was in middle school, she also gave her life to Christ at camp. And so for those that aren't aware, we bring our students every year to camp in Missouri called Kids Across America. And it's an inner city sports camp. And it's a really big commitment and a really big distance. But they do such an amazing job of presenting the gospel to urban kids in a way that I have never seen duplicated elsewhere. And year after year, when we see the fruit from bringing these kids, we look at each other and we say, that's why we do it. That's why it's worth the effort. But she gave her life to Christ at camp. And she called me last month, and she's like, Miss Jody, I'm writing a paper, and it's supposed to be about a pivotal moment in our lives, and I really want to write about youth group and about camp. So can you help me? So we talked for an hour on the phone, just talking through her story and just what it meant for her to have leaders that cared coming alongside her and pointing her to Christ. And she's like, you know what? Someday, I think I want to share this with the kids that are now in the high school program. Maybe in 30 years, though. I'm not ready right now. So hopefully before 30 years, we get her to share, because she's wonderful, and God has been faithful in her life. Another thing she told me was, we moved so much when I was little, Miss Jody, but somehow every place we moved, somebody from a church would find us, and they would just tell us about God and show us his love. She said, so I know that God wanted me to find him.
We also get the joy of being able to come alongside of a lot of other urban youth workers and that kind of work on our side of the Grand Rapids. And part of that is we just love being together. So this is Davian and Rodella Pfizer and their family that, they've been begging to come on a canoe trip for a long time. We're like, we're going to make it happen. So we just get to laugh and build a relationship, even on a non-working piece, which is significant. So there's on the, let's see, going to say, with the yellow shirt and the red sweatshirt. That's Davian and his wife, Rodella. So we do a lot of ministry together with them. They live a block down the road. And so they're with an organization called Urban Transformation Ministries. So I get the joy of meeting with them about once a week to kind of help them grow as leaders. We're currently going through the Clifton Strengths. It's just a tool that kind of help, how did God create you and your giftedness, kind of like a spiritual gifts type of assessment. But it's talking, how do you run a youth ministry? So they're kind of brand new in a lot of these things, and so we get the joy of doing things together and coming alongside them, and they're just they're terrific partners in ministry. But that was their family that we were with. So this is kind of our group leaders from the Navigators. So we had, that's Champagne on the left and Trent. And so we had both of them in youth ministry as younger kids, and they both came as leaders. And both of them lost their moms in the last few years. And so just realizing how much hardship they have come from. Both of them also don't know where their dad is, didn't have a dad present in their lives. So Trent is actually our neighbor, so we've got to see him. So we get together regularly, and Camp even has an impact on leaders where they're like, man, I really want to grow and trust God more. So that's a unique ministry that the camp has, is pouring into and come alongside leaders. But yeah, this is at a Navigators conference, so we invited a few other leaders from Grand Rapids to kind of come with us to a Navigators conference and learning how to become better at discipling others. And so Lydia, who is on the far right on my screen, yeah, it's right on your screen as well. I didn't know if it was like a mirror type of thing. But she is in a spot now where she's leading the middle school programming. So we come alongside and work with her, and so meet with her oftentimes once a week, once every other week, to talk and strategize for camp, and how can we help grow the leaders that are currently working in the leaders in each ministry site for the middle school. So it's just been a joy to work with them. But so we just wanted to give you a bit of a snapshot of some of the age groups that we work with and some of the day in and day outs. And so I'm sure we could share a lot more, but looking at the clock, we should probably stop at this point for at least this portion. I just want to take a few minutes and share, as I was praying about just having a few minutes to share with you this evening. I think God brought to my mind we are a sample, just kind of as I was reflecting on people, serving people. In terms of as we have experienced you, we have just experienced the delightful blessing, and just got me to thinking a little bit about my childhood growing up. When there were times, I don't know if my mom even remembers this, sometimes we'd go to the grocery store, I think Meijer, or even our favorite was Sam's Club, and it was just, back in the day, they used to have a lot more samples, and so as kids, we would go walk around Sam's Club and find all the spots where we could get a little sample. And so there would be the little pizza rolls in one spot, and then there'd be fish sticks maybe, and I would avoid the fish sticks and things like that. But man, I would just love going around and filling my belly with all these delicious samples. And kind of if the idea is man, if this was good enough, kind of the hope was that you would buy it, buy the sample. It just so happens we've got a full freezer case right behind us, and then also tell other people about how delicious and how wonderful, the things were. And so I was just reflecting on just this, the experience sometimes with food. Sometimes we have a fairly negative experience. I was in a friend's wedding in South Carolina, and they were having an oyster roast. And I'm not much of a seafood person, but I thought, I ought to give one of these oysters a try just out of politeness. And so I put the oyster in my mouth for the first time ever trying one. And it was just like, whew. Do any of you like oysters, or no, not too many? I was like, uh-oh, what am I going to do? I can't get this thing down. And so I thought I'd use a solution. I'll grab some Cheez-Its. And so I started putting some Cheez-Its in there to try to mask the flavor. It just wasn't working. And so I finally had to just kind of excuse myself from the room, and I just kind of gently spit it out into the trash. And I thought, that was a really negative experience. That was just not a sample that makes me think, let me go get some more oysters. But then another time, I had a job catering, and they would come out with these curled bacon wraps, and it was like a maple applewood glazed bacon, and they just encrusted with brown sugar on it, and of course, as we were serving these, as working my way through college, we got to sample them. Like, ooh, these are good. And that, as soon as the plate came out, people were like, you've got to try this maple blaze bacon. They're so good. And they just spread across the room, and they were gone. Just word of mouth. Those things did not last at all. They were one of my absolute favorites. Like anytime I get a chance to eat some wrapped bacon with brown sugar on it, it's like, woo, that does not last long around our house or anywhere. But it got me thinking, I wonder, if we are a sample, people serving people, if we are a sample of Jesus, how do people experience Christianity? How do people experience God's kingdom? And some people have had, sadly, very negative experiences of Christianity. Maybe people have been hurt by the church in different ways. And many people have great experiences, and they're like, wow, when I experience this person who I know is a follower of Jesus, I experience kindness and patience and warmth. So I just wanted to read Matthew 5:13 through 16, where Jesus is describing when my kingdom reaches the earth, as people experience the kingdom, this is what my kingdom is really like. Jesus said, "You are the salt of the earth. What good is salt if it has lost its flavor? Can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless." Basically just saying it's impossible for salt to lose its flavor. That as the genuine experience of God's kingdom is only a good experience if it's genuinely God's kingdom. And he goes on to say, "You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." The goal is that people will see the heavenly Father, and it will result in praise for him, that it's a sample that's meant to be out and for people to experience, people who may not know Christ, or other followers of Jesus who are struggling, but that God created us to be a helpful flavor, goodness in the midst of the world. And there's a book I was reading that talked about sometimes people are wandering around almost like a lost puppy. So if you were to envision a puppy that's just kind of wandering around, and then if there's a family that has a heart to like, yikes, I don't want this puppy to get hit by, I don't want danger to happen to this puppy, there's a trust that has to take place where this puppy is like, is this person trustworthy? Can I approach them or not? There's a little bit of a fear and some trust and trying to coax this puppy in, but it's nervous about, can I trust this person? When really, like, hey, if you come into the house, let us feed you and get you warm and dry and help find your owners. But also a puppy could run away. And sometimes in the midst of fear, that puppy could experience fear. And so I thought about that in different ways, that I anticipate that there's a lot of people that are wondering, what is the church? Who are these Christians? Can we trust Jesus? Can we trust God? And we get to be God's hands and feet in the midst of that. And I think sometimes if I'm honest, out of love and out of fear for people, sometimes I just want to just give them truth. And I want to jump in and give them advice. A lot of the students that we work with, I'm like, hey, let me just communicate what you're doing wrong and why that's not a good idea, and let God work. But I think in honesty, sometimes God likes to lead with his kindness, lean in with his grace first. Let me give you an example. One of the young men that we were working with, I was on his way to take him for a job interview, and I was just praying on the way there, God, give me the right words to say to him. I know that he is really hoping to get this job. And as I pulled in to pick him up, he opened the door and hopped in the van. And instantly, there was an overwhelming smell of marijuana, of weed. And so my first instinct was to want to like, what are you doing? You know better than this. Why were you doing drugs just before a job interview? That's terribly foolish. But the Holy Spirit took me down another path. So rather than just jumping on him and giving him hard truth, which would have been true, like that's not very smart, it's not wise, but instead, the Holy Spirit directed me and just said, and I asked him, how are you feeling about this interview? And all of a sudden the tears started to flow. He said, I am so nervous about this interview. Everything for my family rides on me getting this job. And we were able to can we just stop and pray? And so we prayed together about that job interview. And he wound up getting the job. And then afterwards, he was like, by the way, I want to be done with drugs. Is there a way that you can help me be done smoking marijuana? I don't want to be doing that anymore. And I thought, if I had just jumped in with this critical judgment right away from the beginning, that would have completely pushed him away. And I think that's what God has in mind when he says that we are the salt of the earth, that we can step in unchurched areas, we can step in people who are opposed to God with a spirit of grace and a spirit of kindness. And people will lean in like a lost puppy of just saying, these people who follow Jesus are trustworthy. God is trustworthy. Let me lean in the midst of that. And I think even sometimes in the way that we share the gospel, we love to share of like, man, God, out of the overflow of his love, created us in his image to be in relationship with him. What a joy. And with deep sadness, we rebelled against him. So sometimes if we just start with, you're a terrible sinner, that usually doesn't go well. And yet God has used even that method over many years to draw people to himself. So not withholding, I think leaning in with kindness gives us an opportunity to share some tough truth. So even with this young man, I was able to say, yeah, I was really nervous you weren't going to get that job because here's how those drugs are impacting your life and how they're making you a slave to them, and could speak more honestly to him. And so in the same way with sin, being able to first take that first step with love and kindness helps us to take a second step and say, hey, have you thought about these different ways, these areas of your life that you're not trusting God, and watch him share some fruit. So Titus 2:11 says, for the grace of God has appeared that offers salvation to all people. It teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passion. So it's talking about God's grace. It's his grace, it's his kindness that teaches us to say no. In the same way with this young man that I was working with, had I leaned into what my instinct was, it would not have gone wrong, but I think just the power of the Spirit working and saying, lean in with grace, lean in with mercy, lean in with kindness first, and watch me work in his heart. And that's exactly what was coming to place. For the grace of God that offers salvation to all people, it teaches us to say no to ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in this present age. So how do we maintain this good flavor in God's kingdom? How do we be a people who serve people with love and kindness? I think, too, if we look back and say, hey, there's a God who has served us faithfully and continually, as we sang about, that we can continually look up to him and be receiving and reminding of his love, that he has been so faithful in pursuing us with love. 1 John 4:9 says, we serve because he first served us. He first loved us. And so we can continually remind ourselves, yikes, in the midst of the struggle, how do I love this person? Man, God has loved us so deeply. Psalm 34:8 says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Psalm 119:103 says, how sweet are your words to my taste. As we continue to sit and reflect at God's feet and remember how much God loves us, has pursued us, just like he pursued that young girl, he still pursues us as his followers to lean in more and experience more of his grace, so that, just like in Jude 1, that we may have more and more mercy, peace, and love, and extend that continually to others and point to how great God is. So there's just a few reflections, some thoughts I had as just praying through what to share, that reminder of, man, lead with kindness, lead with love and light, and be salt. And the way that we get that is from sitting at God's feet, from first and foremost receiving that love from God. We need to be first and foremost good receivers before we can pass that on to others. So would you join me in prayer? Father, thank you for loving us. Thank you for pursuing us and for loving us first. And God, I thank you for using imperfect, frail, and weak people like us to pass on such great news in your kingdom. It's a joy to see people coming to know you, to see people experiencing and seeing your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.